Yeah. Yo, what up, YouTube? It's Bryce, aka One Who Walks with Draco Sack, aka the Father of Baby Dragon, aka Swag of the Hut, aka Happy Feet Wombo Combo, definitely not Falco. By popular demand today, I am doing my Last Warrior from Another Planet update for the new format. Was it April 2014 right now? So yeah, here we go. The standard 3 Prisma. This dumps whatever and becomes the name, so that's good. 1 Bubble Man, because we can search it and make it seed plays. It's also a water and a hero, really good. And 1 Woodsman. If you guys don't know what this one does, the effect is once per turn during your standby phase, you can add a polymerization from your deck or graveyard to your hand. So, and it's 2000 defense. So you can set this first turn if you're really desperate and it's not that bad. It's also a hero and it can search polymerization, so it's in there for all those reasons. And then the actual Last Warrior stuff, we have 3 Zimbriah the Dark. This is just part of the fusion, and it's also a 2100 4-star warrior that you can summon on its own. And that's half the reason the deck's even remotely decent, because it can stand on its own with like a lance or something and not even be awful while you wait for your setup. 1 Mariyukatai. On the other hand, this card is not very good. It's the other part of the Last Warrior fusion, but it's at least a water, so that's decent. And then 3 King of the Swamp, one of my favorite cards in the game. This can either be discarded from your hand to search for a polymerization like Harpy Queen or Gravekeeper's Commandant or anything. It's like that kind of effect, and it can also take the place of any fusion material monster. And it's also a water, so it's just good for 3 different reasons in this deck. Shout out to the homie Ben on the DT ones, you already know. I'll put a link to his channel in the description. And then we have 2, the Earth Hex Sealed Fusion. What this card does is it can take the place of any fusion material monster, and then it has a secondary effect that a lot of people don't know about. If it's on the board and the other fusion material monsters on the board, you contribute this and the other material to special summon an Earth type fusion monster from your fusion deck, or extra deck. I think it says fusion deck probably, but it means extra deck. And so you can basically hard summon a Last Warrior if you have like a Zombriah on board, and you summon this and you tribute them both. So added utility of that card. All these cards just have a lot of utility, so that's why the deck somewhat functions. And then the last 2 monster cards are 2 Card Trooper. You can mill and try to set up Miracle Fusion plays, I guess. But it's also in there because you can, when Last Warrior from Another Planet's on the field, neither player can summon monsters. That's the effect of the card that makes it so good. But you can still set. So you can set your Card Troopers, and a lot of people's only out is Dark Hole to Last Warrior. Dark Hole and Book of Moon are pretty much 2 of the only common outs to the card. So if they finally draw their Dark Hole and you have 2 Card Troopers face down, then you get to draw 2 cards, and that's good. But yeah, it's also very good on its own standalone card. It can be 19 if you need to, and such. Then 2 MSTs. You're not really worried about back row in this deck because you do run Royal Decree, so that's why I only run the 2 MSTs in the main deck. Then 2 Forbidden Lance. This card's incredibly good. Like I said, a lot of people's only outs are Dark Hole and Book of Moon. So if you Dark Hole, or if they Dark Hole or Book, and you have Lance, then you're just golden. And one of the only other ways that the deck gets stopped is your opponent having a monster already on board that's bigger than 2350. So Lance helps out with that. And then Forbidden Chalice. Like I said, players can set monsters against this deck. So if they do happen to be running something like Raikou or whatever, that's a flip effect, Forbidden Chalice can activate in the damage step because it involves an attack gain. So when monsters flip, you can Chalice it and still get around it. Plus, it can give your Last Warrior an extra 400 attack if it needs to get over something bigger, like I said a second ago. So those 4 cards, very versatile in this deck as well. Then 3 Polymerization. This is necessary to summon Last Warrior. It can only be brought out like traditionally, basically, with the normal Polymerization. And yeah, it can also sort of like, in desperate situations, you can make hero fusions with this card as well. 3 Miracle Fusion. This card is another reason the deck's somewhat viable, just because it's so broken on its own. Once you've already used up your heroes and they're engraved, basically, you can just Miracle Fusion, make 0, or Shining, or whatever, really. And another play is to Miracle Fusion for 0, have 0 on board, and when Last Warrior is summoned, he destroys all monsters on your side of the field. So the 0 gets destroyed, and then that destroys all of your opponent's monsters. So that's a good way to deal with large boards full of monsters, basically, because otherwise you're just going to have to grind through it slowly. 2 Pot of Duality. Only 2 because it does up the consistency some, but your goal of this deck is to special summon a monster. So this card is basically, if you activate this card turn 1 or any turn, it's basically admitting defeat for that turn, but trying to set up for the next turn. And then something else I'm trying in the deck right now, 3 Upstart Goblin, because I figured once you get Last Warrior on the board, it doesn't matter what their life is, you're eventually going to win, ideally. And so this card, obviously it's kind of hot right now anyway, but you makes the deck 37 cards, that much more consistent. In testing, I actually haven't ever like drawn into something I need, but if I didn't run Upstart, I would probably run just the emergency calls, emergency calls, so that I can search out Bubble Man or Prisma. So that would add consistency that way. It's kind of preference, but I'm trying this out right now. And then other spells, Book of Moon, really, really good in this deck. Good card in general, but basically you can have a field full of like monsters set on the field and a Last Warrior. And then you Book of Moon your Last Warrior, you flip them all up, and then you have a bunch of monsters, and you flip some in the Last Warrior, and you basically OTK. Dark Hole, wipe out the board, and then summon Last Warrior, because like I said, the biggest problem with the deck is when your opponent has a bigger monster than you already. Rhoda, search out whatever, it's basically E-Call, except you can also search out Zumbria, because he's a level 4 warrior, like I said. So yeah, really versatile in the deck. And then the traps, there's only a few. There's 3 Call of the Haunted, or sorry, there's 3 Royal Decree, not Call of the Haunted. This card, obviously it stops all trap cards, so just protection. In the deck, one of the reasons that you'd lose with the deck is because of being impatient, basically. If you get a Last Warrior on the board and they have back row, it is best to, well, once you resolve the summon of Last Warrior, their only back row that they're going to have to stop it is potentially a Compulse they draw into, I guess, but then like Mirror Force, or maybe Deprison. So you just need to save this card, or you need to wait until you have Decree, basically. Because if it gets through the summon stoppers, basically, like Bottomless or Torrential or whatever, then you're golden on those, but you just, so they're not going to stop it, basically. They're just going to keep drawing cards, and you're going to keep drawing cards, and you'll eventually draw this, and then you can stop the back row. You can freeze it, basically, that they have. So, word of advice, just wait until you have this card, and you'll win more games with this deck. And then the last trap is called a Haunted, because Last Warrior, it's just a generic fusion monster. You can bring it back with Call of the Haunted, or Reborn. But yeah, or Soul Charge, I guess, now. But yeah, Call of the Haunted, OP. Brings back Last Warrior. I only run the one because I obviously do run the Decrees. That's the logic on that. Anyway, onto the extra deck. Somewhat relevant, somewhat relevant. We run the Cowboy, just off chance you need 800 for game or whatever. Dweller, the off chance you have a really, really grinded out game, and maybe you've used your Last Warriors or whatever, and this will help you. It's just there in case it's needed. Maestro, same logic, it's there in case it's needed, and that space is not really tight in this extra deck. Heroic Champion Excalibur, this is like the MVP other than Last Warrior. It's the MVP Exceed of the deck. It gets over everything, and a lot of people don't know it keeps the attack until the next... until their next end phase, so they just don't know it's still 4,000, and they'll try to attack into it, and I won't like shark them on attacking it, like I'll let them take their attack back, but at least they wasted their battle phase for the turn, basically. And then Honor Arc, number 101, you already know. This card's probably the second MVP of the deck, just takes whatever, gets it out of the way, and then because it's like Maestro, and can save itself, you can summon Last Warrior with it on the board. You just detach a material and you have another 21 body on the field. Yeah. Blade Armor Ninja. This card, obviously you can attack twice, inflict 44 in one turn potentially. It takes 2 warriors, but you have a bunch of warriors, so it works out. I like that card as well in the deck. The fusions, 2 Last Warrior from another planet. If you guys aren't familiar with the effect, I guess, there's the effect right there. When it's special summon, destroy all monsters on your side of the field except this card. As long as it remains face up on the field, neither player can normal, flip, or special summon any monster. So just that lockout. I love the card, so yeah. Then the other fusions are just the generic hero fusions. We have the 1 dark one, the fire, the wind. These are all just super poly targets, really. Can't even make them in the deck, other than the dark one with Exceeds. And I guess we can make Nova Master, or not Nova Master, Great Tornado with Exceeds too, but they're mainly there for super poly. Then we run 2-0. This is the MVP fusion, other than Last Warrior in the deck. Wipes out boards, basically. It wins games on its own. And then Shining, this thing can just be really big if you need it to be. It also gives you the potential 2 cards back from your banished zone, or whatever it's called. So yeah, those are basically the 2 best fusions, or best hero fusions. That's why we run the 2 of each of those. Onto the side deck, somewhat relevant, but a lot of people won't have anything to side against you, so it's just an even bigger advantage than normal siding. 1 Thunder King, this can just potentially eat resources on its own and make them waste cards to get rid of this. Plus it stops searching, it's pretty good. 1 Veiler, because we're not necessarily trying to deal with effects in this deck. Like, there's not that many effects we necessarily need to stop, because yeah, once you get Last Warrior, you don't have to worry about monsters. But Breakthrough Skill may be better than this card, because if they have a Pleiades on board, then you can Breakthrough Skill it and then go for Last Warrior, which you can't do with Veiler. But this choice was made also partially because I didn't have Breakthrough Skill with me at the time I built the deck. Swag. 2 Deck Lockdown. It's a decent card. It's also a spell. Basically, you can play this when you have Last Warrior on the board. Doesn't hurt you at all. Just further shuts your opponent down. Yeah. 2 Super Polymerization. It kind of conflicts with the deck's win condition because it discards cards, but this is like for grinded out games against stuff that's hard to get over otherwise, like Mermaid Abyss Gaios or whatever, Pleiades, Omega, stuff like that, because cards can't be activated in response to this. So yeah, it's a good card. Pretty much good against everything. It's like a blanket side like that. 2 Zombie World. This stops like dragon stuff, plant stuff, Yugioh, a bunch of decks, spellcaster decks, spell books I mean, but it is a spellcaster deck. Basically anything that relies on the type that actually matters. Boojins too, I can't believe I forgot that. That's mainly what it stops. But yeah, Zombie World, really good, and it's not a trap, so that's another reason it's good. 2 Noblemen, because people are going to be potentially setting on you a lot, because that's all they can do. And you can remove crucial cards like Lens and stuff with this, or flip effect monsters like Raikou or whatever, because that's one of the only things that will actually stop you. I guess Lind doesn't matter at all against this deck, but removes armors, removes Lens. It's just a decent card. Like, decent, not necessarily good. I'm just trying this out, because the side deck is, once again, it's not that important. 1 MST, because MST is kind of necessary at 3, at least, between the main and the side. 1 Dust Tornado. I just believe in hitting back row, even though I do run the Decrees. You can't always have the Decree, and if they have a Fiendish Chain for your Last Warrior, that's another out to the card. Somewhat scary. And then some other traps that are just too good not to run. Soul Drain doesn't hurt us at all, and it can shut down certain decks. And then 2 Skill Prisoner. I chose this over Breakthrough Skill once again because I had them with me, that's why. They pretty much do exactly the same thing. They stop like Pleiades or whatever. But Breakthrough Skill can negate effects that are like blanket effects, I guess, too. So it's probably a little bit better. But this card can protect whatever you need to protect. It can protect a zombie world, potentially. Basically, it can protect back row as well. That's an argument for it. But yeah, Breakthrough Skill, Skill Prisoner, you could run either of the two. Yeah, so I guess thanks for watching, guys. If there's anything that you think I blatantly missed, I guess let me know. And thanks. Peace.